Alrighty, guys, welcome back into Slaughterhouse Sports. We are here on this Thursday, December 14th edition of the show, and we're going to be talking now about Daniel Kaelin, Belluve West quarterback. He is now going to be going up to Michigan State. He's going to be going to East Lansing, Michigan, and honestly, I can't blame Daniel Kaelin for this decision. I really can't. Because what does the saying go? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on them. I mean, in this case right here, basically, Daniel Kaelin was committed to Nebraska for a very long time. And now Dylan Raiola now wants to come back into the fold at, Nebraska. And I mean, what has really changed in the scenario here for Dylan Raiola? I mean, Nebraska's offense last year didn't show anything good from the quarterback spot. The only reason why Dylan Raiola is honestly coming back towards Nebraska most likely is because something happened at the University of Georgia. Now, did suddenly Nebraska dig up a ton of NIL money that just happened to come out of the complete blue? I happen to maybe doubt that. In the process. But Michigan State is favored to also get Aiden Childs. And Aiden Childs is Jonathan Smith's guy. Aiden Childs was a freshman quarterback that was really, really good last year at Oregon State, coming in for DJU at times. And Aiden Childs is still favored to go to Michigan State. However, there happens to be a holdout there with. There happens to still be a holdout. He still hasn't, taken the spot yet at Michigan State. That's still not official. So, but really, Daniel Kaelin's not going to wait around for Matt Rhule to continue fiddling he's not going to wait around for Nebraska to keep fiddling with Dylan Raiola. All right. And the thing is, honestly, if we're comparing Scott Satterfield or Marcus Satterfield, we're comparing Marcus Satterfield and Matt Rhule's offensive intellect at the college level to Jonathan Smith. I mean, honestly, Jonathan Smith has you beat. He does, because Jonathan Smith, one of his proteges, Jake Browning was up there at Washington with Dante Pettis, and Jake Browning also had that guy Ross, who was a top 10 receiver in the NFL draft, that real speedster that played at Washington. So so basically, Jonathan Smith was the offensive coordinator for DJU, for Aiden Childs, and also for Jake Browning. And they've also had really good offensive football. Like Luke Musgrave has made it to the NFL. He's a tight end for the Green Bay Packers. So Jonathan Smith is a really good offensive coach. He was there at Boise State. He was at Washington under Chris Peterson. He has better quarterback play than Matt Rhule has had in his entirety of his coaching career. Matt Rhule specializes on the defensive side of the ball. So for Daniel Kaelin, he wants to be the one quarterback that is the 2024 quarterback. And Aiden Childs is, he's basically a year older at Michigan State. The other thing about Michigan State and the other thing about Kaelin is Kaelin can get developed well at Michigan State, and then he could always, I think he's going to get developed even better at Michigan State under Jonathan Smith, and then he could look to compete for a couple of years, or he can really grow there at Michigan State. I think he's fed up with, what Nebraska is doing. They're dangling him in this process. They really are. So there's a world in which Nebraska really could have seriously gotten Kyle McCord and Daniel Kaelin. So if they don't land Dylan Raiola, they missed out on two pretty solid quarterback options in my eyes. All right. So it's all or nothing now with Dylan Raiola. And the thing that I'm going to say here, guys, to wrap up this video is that Matt Rhule at Carolina, why did he get fired? He got fired because he took a risk on Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold was not a top-flight NFL starting quarterback. In fact, he's still not an NFL starter. He was kind of, in the NFL, he was a disappointment for being the third overall pick to the New York Jets. And Matt Rhule wanted that. Matt Rhule also hired Joe Brady. Joe Brady and Teddy Bridgewater did not work out in Carolina. Their offense was poor. Finally, in a last-ditch effort, Matt Rhule also decided to hire Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo got fired by the New York Giants. He decided to hire Ben McAdoo as an offensive coordinator, and Ben McAdoo was a terrible head coach for the New York Giants. I would know that, watching Giants football all these years. And then he decided to bring in a guy by the name of Baker Mayfield. And all Baker Mayfield did in that offense, even with Christian McCaffrey, that offense was downright horrible. And that is why Matt Rhule ended up getting ousted in the NFL, because the NFL is about the quarterback a lot. And even though they were building a young defense that did have pieces like Derek Brown and I believe even J.C. Horn on the back end and stuff, and Brian Burns, even though they were hitting on some of their defensive picks, the offense was downright atrocious. And now Baker Mayfield, he ended up getting released by Carolina. And now Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay under Dave Canales and under Todd Bowles, he's performing better. Now Mike Evans is there, Godwin, so better weapons, but still. So the point is with Matt Rhule is that his whole NFL tenure failed because he didn't have the quarterback. And that's not specific to Matt Rhule. It's specific to maybe most failed head coaches that don't make it in the National Football League. But now Matt Rhule had an embarrassing situation at quarterback. He chased off Casey Thompson. The offense was absolutely downright atrocious this year. They couldn't even go 7-5, which is what Northwestern went, which is what Wisconsin went. They couldn't even get to a bowl game in the worst Big Ten West that's ever existed. And I know it's just year one. So we'll give Matt Rhule credit for Tony White retaining Ty Robinson and retaining the polar bear nut Hockmacher. Okay, I'll give him credit for this defense. He did a tremendous job instilling a culture of tackling, instilling toughness, physicality. The defense exceeded expectations to a great degree. The special teams was not completely embarrassing, although Alvano missed plenty of kicks this year in big spots late in the season. All right, but the thing about Matt Rhule that's always evaded him has been this quarterback conundrum that's just been kind of that thorn in the side of Matt Rhule now for the last 6 or 7 years, going back to his time in the NFL. Okay, so what is really interesting about this recruitment, which is what I want you guys to think about, is Matt Rhule and his entire time at Nebraska, which has been a year and a half or just been a year. Matt Rhule has preached 3 stars. Matt Rhule has preached, we develop. We're going to build the walk-on program. We're going to win with defense and toughness, and we're a developmental, non-flashy program. Kind of that all substance, not flash. Okay? So, and in fairness to Rhule, he kept on Raiola, and the offensive line did do better with Matt Rhule. And it's not like Donovan Raiola's offensive line. It's not like they were a complete and total weak link. They were actually, you could consider them maybe the best offensive unit on the football team, okay? So it wasn't just a ploy to get Dylan Raiola. But, so here's the thing now. Matt Rhule is not used to these, 5-star. Matt Rhule is used to taking guys actually that have no stars in Texas that might just be really good at track and really good runners, and developing guys that don't really have a ton of football experience and don't have a lot of stars by their name. And it's a developmental program. That's what Matt Rhule and Trev Alberts have said that they're all about. Now, I know that Nebraska is building a football facility that borders on $150 million, maybe even more. I know that the renovations to Memorial Stadium are even costing around the $450 million range. So there's a lot of money getting put into the program right now. And I know that Matt Rhule is frustrated with not having his quarterback. However, Matt Rhule has preached patience and building this thing, on sturdy blocks or on sturdy rock. He's talking about building a solid foundation. And a solid foundation to me is continuing to invest in the defense, continuing to be loyal to the people who pledged to your class at Nebraska. And it hasn't really been chasing these 5-star, these bona fide superstars. It hasn't been ring chasing or star chasing. So that is why the Dylan Raiola thing is kind of at odds with Matt Rhule in this process. So now Daniel Kaelin is visiting Michigan State. I think that he really likes Jonathan Smith in that track record. Kyle McCord is out of the picture. So honestly, Dylan Raiola, the way that this thing should have been handled, I'm to the point where I'm getting a little bit frustrated because I do want to see Nebraska do well. And I'm getting to the point where I'm a tad bit frustrated. And the reason I am this way is because the way it should have been handled is that Dylan Raiola should have already been committed. He should have already signed and pledged his commitment to the University of Nebraska. He is just taking a visit. What the heck is a visit to Lincoln going to do for Dylan Raiola? He's been in Lincoln probably 5 or 10 times. In fact, he was committed to Georgia, and he still visited his uncle in Lincoln. He's been around Matt Rhule. He's been around Alberts. He knows about everything. So what is the visit honestly going to do for Dylan Raiola? What is it going to do? Maybe it's NIL stuff, but I'm frustrated by the whole thing because he hasn't even signed yet, and Nebraska doesn't want to have the old switcheroo. So the point is also, the Raiolas, Dom Raiola, really good center, the Remington Award winner, and also now Donnie Raiola. The Raiolas are revered in Nebraska. They have a very good kind of reputation in Nebraska. Now, if Dylan doesn't commit to Nebraska and you lose out on an experienced quarterback in Kyle McCord, which is as known of a commodity as you're going to maybe find, you miss Kyle McCord. You could have had McCord, and Kaelin would have stayed and committed to Nebraska, for sure. If Dylan goes on this visit, goes through this whole thing about going away from Georgia, opening up his commitment, and he doesn't commit to Nebraska, it's going to make his uncle look worse. It just is. It's going to make his job security worse. It's going to make the reputations now of the Raiolas are definitely going to take a turn in Lincoln. People are going to be angry because Dylan is now dangling everybody by all accounts. And that's what happens when you are the star. So it's at odds with Matt Rhule's personality. And the other thing is that I seriously believe that something happened late with Georgia to cause Dylan to get frustrated. I'm not sure Nebraska suddenly found this new pot of money, or I don't know. It's not like Satterfield in this offense was awesome. It's not like Nebraska's pulling in incredible wide receiver recruits. However, I will tell you the silver lining in all of this is that Nebraska, by going after Kyle McCord and going after Dylan Raiola, it's not just poor old Nebraska anymore. Nebraska seriously has the funds to compete for top-end talent. So if it's the doomsday scenario and suddenly Dylan Raiola leaves, apparently you still have money to somehow afford Kyle McCord and Dylan Raiola. Apparently your NIL's doing well enough. Apparently the boosters have ponied up the cash. Now, maybe it was only for Dylan Raiola. That's the most interesting thing. However, you can go get Malik Murphy or you can go get another transfer quarterback. All right. So, again, I wanted to make a video on all of this. Okay. You could go get Malik Murphy. You can go get a really talented transfer. I think Malik Murphy would be perfect. So you still have the money in-house. Spend it wisely. You have the ammunition now, okay? You have the artillery to go out there and do this thing, get the mission done, all right? So be smart about it. But the fact that Matt Rhule, they didn't handle this well. Matt Rhule honestly should have kept quiet. This is what Texas did with Sark, what stealth operations do in cases of war or in cases of everything. When you're trying to think of a mission and everything, it's about being quiet, okay, and then surging and getting it in under the wire without all this fanfare, without all the notoriety, without everybody, without a circus, okay? And they should have had Dylan signed, sealed, and delivered by now. So maybe it will all happen very, very soon, but still, to cause all this chaos with Kaelin, to have McCord on your campus while all this is going down, it reeks of disorganization. It does reek of that. Whereas Texas, when they hired Steve Sarkisian from Alabama, they let Tom Herman go. They fired Herman and immediately hired Sark because they had Sark signed on the dotted line immediately. And it was all kept private, secret, and professional. And Nebraska right now with Matt Rhule, I'm just telling you, if he doesn't get Raiola, if this thing blows up in his face, it's going to be embarrassing on Rhule and his time in Lincoln. I'm just telling you, he's going to have to find results quicker in like 2 or 3 years. The clock is going to start running on Rhule because people are now emotionally, the fans and the boosters are now emotionally all in on Dylan. And instead of Matt Rhule getting a 5 or 6 year runway or whatever, this is just going to cause a ton of angst and frustration. I can already sense it with Nebraska people. So we will see how this all shakes out. It is crazy. It is one of the crazier recruiting stories that we've seen in years. And Nebraska's at the forefront of it all. All right, guys, I know it's a little bit of a longer video, but again, I appreciate everybody coming to the channel. I appreciate everybody viewing the videos, and thank you, and take care.